Good evening again, everybody, and thanks for joining us at our home away from home at TVO. We're here at the Munk Center for International Studies on the downtown campus of the University of Toronto. Michael, if you would, go to a wide shot, show all the people who have gone to tvo.org, signed up for tickets to come to tonight's program. And I must say, as you look at these pictures, the people in this audience who are students deserve a special pat on the back for being here tonight, because this is exam week at the U of T, and they have decided, they're laughing now, they have decided to be with us this evening instead of studying for exams. I'm hoping we're going to make that decision worthwhile this evening, ladies and gentlemen of the student body, because we've got a most interesting discussion in store for tonight's broadcast. I want to remind you that after the broadcast is over at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, go over to tvo.org online and continue to participate in our program with a post-program web chat. And our guests will stick around. It's an opportunity for you to put your comments, your questions directly to our guests this evening who have come from far and near to participate in tonight's program. So once again, 9 p.m. at tvo.org for the post-program web chat. Now, let's introduce our guests for you this evening, starting with Lieutenant Colonel Rick Francona, retired United States Air Force Intelligence Officer. Ramin Jahanbegloo, the Dean's Distinguished Visitor in Human Rights at the University of Toronto. Mark Bowden, correspondent for the Atlantic Monthly. And Melissa Williams, Associate Professor of Political Science here at the University of Toronto. Thank you, everybody, for coming on both sides of the border to be with us here this evening. We do have a tricky topic for your consideration this evening. Torture, enhanced interrogation techniques. We'll discuss it all this evening. Rick, I want to start with you because when discussing torture or enhanced interrogation, call it what you will, I think nowadays almost invariably people think Abu Ghraib. It has been such a highly publicized event. How representative is Abu Ghraib about what we're discussing tonight?
It really doesn't apply. Abu Ghraib was an aberration in what took place in Iraq. It really had nothing to do with intelligence or interrogation. What you saw, those horrific pictures, was misconduct on the part of American soldiers. Virtually everybody involved in that were military policemen. There were no intelligence people involved in what you saw there. Those mistreatment, the use of the dogs, the humiliation, the forced fake sexual activity, nudity, all of that was done by out-of-control military people, military policemen. What happened was the military command in Baghdad set up a detention facility almost contrary to everything that's in Army doctrine. Army doctrine is very specific. The military police provide the security and run the security aspects of the detention facility. The military intelligence people do the interrogations. General Sanchez set this up for failure by putting the military intelligence people in charge of the whole facility. They're not trained or equipped to run a prison. Military policemen do that. So there was this ambiguous chain of command. No one knew who was in charge. No one knew who was supposed to do what. Okay, so you had these people out of control.
If I've got you right, though, you say it's not representative of what we're talking about this evening. Melissa Williams, let me get your position on that. Do you think Abu Ghraib is representative of the kind of subject we're going to be discussing this evening?
Well, I think that the Abu Ghraib actions don't seem to fall clearly within the domain of what we call interrogation procedures, or whether torture or enhanced interrogation or any really interrogation procedure, because as Rick suggested, the purpose there was not to extract information from the prisoners. The purpose was to humiliate them and to intimidate them, but not to extract information.
So in that respect, you're agreeing with him?
If we are defining torture in terms of interrogation techniques, yes, that isn't how the Convention Against Torture and other inhuman and degrading treatment defines torture. It defines torture as any act which intentionally inflicts severe emotional or physical suffering. So from that point of view, it was the intentional infliction, but it does fall outside the usual justifications for torture because there was no public good which was being served by those acts.
Based on that definition, and Ramin, we wanted you here this evening, of course, not just because you're on this campus right now, but you've been through some of this. You spent 4 months in a very notoriously nasty Iranian prison. Based on the definition of torture we just heard, is that what happened to you?
Well, according to the Geneva Convention and the the Convention Against the Torture, yes, because solitary confinement, I was in solitary confinement for 125 days, and solitary confinement per se is a kind of torture, and interrogations also is a kind of a torture, yes, certainly. And I don't agree with Rick by saying that I think that any high security prison per se could create humiliation, and even if you don't waterboard people, or you don't put them naked, but by just putting them in solitary, it's a way of humiliating them, and it's a form of torture.
Now here's where the conversation gets a little complicated, because Mark, you have written about Abu Ghraib, and for all that is wrong about it, for all that people hated what went on there, you did tell us in some of your articles that the fear of being sent there did prompt some prisoners to talk. What was it about Abu Ghraib that made them afraid?
Well, Abu Ghraib is a prison that existed during Saddam Hussein's regime, and it was notorious for torture and for random and routine execution. So Iraqis, I think, came to Abu Ghraib with that whole history. I think the knowledge that they could be mistreated by American forces definitely creates a climate of fear. And I'm not saying, and I wouldn't say, that it justified the treatment that went on at Abu Ghraib. What happened there should not have happened. But without a doubt, it created a climate of fear that in its own way was useful to interrogators in Iraq.